Thanks, Joe. Well, more than half of Iowa's public schools struggled to meet federal benchmarks this year. The report card just came out. 64% of schools failed to make what they call adequate yearly progress under the federal No Child Left Behind Act. That means 869 of the state's 1,361 schools didn't show enough progress in reading or math proficiency. For a school to meet adequate yearly progress, 94% of its students had to score well on the yearly state test called Iowa Assessment, used to be called ITBS. Maren Fluker is the expert on all issues education. She is a Gazette reporter with that beat, and you're going to help us break this down. These are a lot of numbers. It's a huge packet that they released. What does it mean, though, that Des Moines, Iowa City, Dubuque, Cedar Rapids, all these big communities failed according to this benchmark?
Well, what it means is that as the benchmarks have gotten higher, those students who have not shown proficiency are continuing to not show proficiency. A lot of districts are seeing what they're calling, topping out, where the amount of students who are going to meet or exceed proficiency have done so.
And if they're not going to, they're not going to change just because another year has passed.
Right, and next year districts are looking down the barrel of a 100% proficiency requirement, which I've heard some educators call statistically impossible to meet.
Yeah, 100% of students on grade level. That does sound out of reach just from a mathematical perspective. But we looked at a school, Central City. It's a small district. We highlighted it at 5. It's always done really well on these assessments, and just recently it's on the watch list. But when you look at the list, small school districts by and large do very well on this assessment compared to bigger school districts. Is it because those smaller school districts are better educators?
Well, actually, that points to something that administrators have talked about as one of the big problems with this one-size-fits-all assessment, is that it kind of penalizes districts that serve large populations, and especially largely diverse populations, because they are evaluated in the strides they make in certain subgroups, such as English language proficiency, special education, students of color. Those students, those subgroups, their scores are looked at in addition to how the schools do overall.
So No Child Left Behind has one more year until it's all said and done. We've learned a lot since 2001 when NCLB first came into existence. What can we do differently that would be better in evaluating how well our schools are educating?
A lot of curriculum directors and administrators have talked about moving to a growth model that would actually look at how students do from year to year as they move through the system, instead of comparing this year's third graders with next year's third graders and so on, because it doesn't reward the growth that students may show over time.
Sure. Maren Fluker, thanks so much. You can read more, of course, in the Gazette.